Welcome to a story that will shatter everything you believe about family loyalty and trust. I'm Oprah Winfrey, and in my decades of hosting this show, I've seen betrayal take many forms, but few have disturbed me as deeply as what you're about to hear. Today, we re-exploring one of the most insidious forms of family betrayal imaginable. When the person you trust most in the world doesn't just break your heart, but literally steals your entire identity and builds a life using your name, your credit, and your reputation. Imagine discovering that for 8 years, someone has been living as you, not just pretending to be you occasionally, but completely assuming your identity, getting married in your name, buying homes with your credit, having children who legally belong to you on paper, building businesses under your social security number. Now imagine that this person isn't a stranger or a sophisticated criminal. It's your own sister, the person you protected and loved unconditionally your entire life. This isn't a movie plot or a cautionary tale. This is the devastating reality that Rebecca Martinez from Phoenix, Arizona lived through, and her story will make you question how well we truly know the people we love most, and whether there are any limits to the damage family members can inflict on each other. The betrayal was so complete, so systematic, and so personal that it didn't just destroy Rebecca's financial life. It challenged her fundamental understanding of family, trust, and her own identity. When your own sister can steal your life and live it better than you ever did, what does that say about family bonds? What does that say about love? Let me tell you about Rebecca Martinez, a woman who built her life on hard work, integrity, and an unshakable belief in family loyalty. At 42, Rebecca was everything her family had hoped she would become: a successful marketing executive in Phoenix, a homeowner, a woman with perfect credit and a spotless reputation built over 2 decades of responsible choices. Rebecca had always been the responsible one, the achiever, the daughter who made her immigrant parents proud. She was the first in her family to graduate college, the first to own her own home, the first to build real financial security. But more than her professional success, Rebecca was known for her generous heart, especially when it came to her younger sister, Anna. Anna was 5 years younger, and from childhood, she had been Rebecca's shadow, her responsibility, her beloved little sister who could do no wrong. When their parents worked multiple jobs to make ends meet, it was Rebecca who helped Anna with homework, who saved her allowance to buy Anna school supplies, who made sure her little sister never felt left out or left behind. This protective relationship continued into adulthood. When Anna struggled to find steady work, Rebecca helped with her rent. When Anna's car broke down, Rebecca co-signed for a loan. When Anna needed emergency money for what she claimed were medical bills, Rebecca emptied her savings without question. To Rebecca, this wasn't charity, this was family, this was love. Anna had always been different from Rebecca, more impulsive, more social, more interested in appearances and material things. While Rebecca saved every penny and built her credit slowly and carefully, Anna seemed to live paycheck to paycheck, always one emergency away from financial disaster. But Rebecca never judged her sister for these differences. She saw Anna's struggles as temporary setbacks, and she believed that with enough support and love, Anna would eventually find her footing. What Rebecca didn't know was that Anna had found her footing by stepping directly into Rebecca. shoes and wearing them as if they had always been hers. The first sign that something was wrong came in March 2023, when Rebecca applied for a mortgage to upgrade to a larger home. She had been pre-approved informally and was confident about her application. Her credit had always been excellent, her income was substantial and steady, and she had significant savings for a down payment. The rejection came as a complete shock. Not just a rejection, but a rejection accompanied by a credit report that Rebecca didn't recognize as her own. According to the report, she had massive credit card debt across 12 different cards. She had defaulted on multiple loans, and her credit score had plummeted to a level that made her essentially unbankable. Rebecca's first thought was that there had been a mistake, a mix-up with someone who had a similar name or social security number. She spent weeks on the phone with credit agencies, banks, and reporting companies, certain that she could clear up this obvious error quickly and get back to her home buying process. But as she dug deeper into the mysterious debts and accounts, a horrifying pattern began to emerge. The addresses associated with these accounts weren't random. They were addresses where Anna had lived. The phone numbers weren't unfamiliar. They were numbers Anna had used. The employment information wasn't incorrect. It was Anna's job history, listed under Rebecca's social security number. Slowly, methodically, Rebecca began to piece together a truth so devastating that she initially refused to believe it. Her beloved little sister, the person she had protected and supported her entire life, hadn't just borrowed money from her, she had borrowed her entire identity. The scope of Anna's deception was breathtaking in its audacity and heartbreaking in its completeness. Over 8 years, Anna hadn't just stolen Rebecca's identity, she had lived it more fully and more dramatically than Rebecca had ever lived it herself. The financial theft was staggering. Anna had opened 12 credit cards in Rebecca's name, each one maxed out to its limit. She had taken out personal loans, car loans, and even a business loan, all using Rebecca's sterling credit history as collateral. The total debt was over $300,000, but that was just the beginning of what Anna had stolen. Using Rebecca's identity, Anna had purchased a $400,000 home in Scottsdale, Arizona. Not a modest starter home, but a 4-bedroom house with a pool in an upscale neighborhood. She had furnished it with expensive furniture bought on credit cards in Rebecca's name. She had leased 2 luxury cars, a BMW and a Mercedes, both with payments that exceeded Rebecca's actual monthly salary. But Anna's theft went far beyond material possessions. She had used Rebecca's social security number to start a consulting business called Martinez Strategic Solutions. The business had contracts, employees, and a reputation built entirely on credentials that belonged to Rebecca. Anna had created LinkedIn profiles, professional websites, and marketing materials, all featuring Rebecca's education, work history, and accomplishments, but with Anna's photo and contact information. The personal violations were even more disturbing. Anna had created dating profiles using Rebecca's identity, had applied for apartments and jobs as Rebecca, and had even used Rebecca's name and credentials to volunteer for charities and community organizations. She had built an entire social media presence as Rebecca, posting photos of her luxurious lifestyle, her beautiful home, her expensive vacations, all funded by credit cards in her sister's name. Most shocking of all, Ana had gotten married as Rebecca Martinez. Her husband, David, believed he had married Rebecca. Their marriage certificate listed Rebecca as the bride. Their joint bank accounts were in Rebecca's name. When Ana gave birth to 2 children during their marriage, Rebecca was listed as the mother on both birth certificates. The logistics of maintaining this deception were incredibly complex, but Ana had thought of everything. She had mail forwarded from Rebecca's address to a P.O. box she controlled. She had used different variations of Rebecca's name, sometimes Rebecca, sometimes Becky, sometimes R. Martinez, to avoid detection. She had memorized Rebecca's social security number, birth date, and personal history so completely that she could pass any identity verification process. Ana had even gone so far as to intercept Rebecca's mail, including tax documents and credit reports, to ensure that Rebecca wouldn't accidentally discover the theft. For years, Rebecca had wondered why she seemed to receive less mail than expected, but she had attributed it to the Postal Service or changes in billing practices by her creditors. The most devastating realization for Rebecca was that Ana hadn't just stolen her identity out of desperation or temporary need. She had stolen it to live a better life than Rebecca herself was living. While Rebecca was saving money and living modestly, Ana was using Rebecca's credit to live in luxury. While Rebecca was single and focused on her career, Ana was married and raising a family, all under Rebecca's name. Ana had taken everything Rebecca was, her responsible nature, her good credit, her professional reputation, her spotless character, and had used it as the foundation for a life more extravagant and fulfilling than Rebecca had ever allowed herself to enjoy. What made this betrayal even more painful was the realization that every time Rebecca had helped Ana financially over the years, Ana had been living this secret life of luxury funded by Rebecca's stolen identity. Every time Ana had claimed to be struggling, she had been coming home to a house that was bigger and more expensive than Rebecca's own home. How do you process the realization that your own sister didn't just steal from you, but built an entire empire of deception on the foundation of your trust and love? Thank you so much for staying with us through this incredible and heartbreaking journey. I know this story is difficult to process, but I promise you, the most revealing and shocking details are still ahead of us. The depth of Ana's deception became clear as Rebecca began to investigate not just the financial theft, but the elaborate life Ana had constructed using her identity. This wasn't a simple case of credit card fraud. This was a complete identity replacement that had been maintained with meticulous planning and ruthless execution for nearly a decade. Ana's husband, David, had no idea he was married to the wrong woman. When he met Ana in 2018, she introduced herself as Rebecca Martinez, a successful consultant with an MBA and a spotless reputation. She showed him LinkedIn profiles, business credentials, and professional references, all legitimate because they were actually Rebecca's credentials. David fell in love with who he thought was Rebecca, and their entire relationship was built on her sister's stolen achievements. Their wedding was an elaborate affair with over 200 guests, all celebrating the marriage of David and Rebecca Martinez. Ana wore a white dress and walked down the aisle as Rebecca, exchanging vows under her sister's name, promising to love and honor David as someone she wasn't. The wedding photos, the marriage certificate, the joint bank accounts, The insurance policies, everything listed Rebecca as David's wife, while the real Rebecca had no idea that she was legally married to a man she had never met. When Anna became pregnant, she attended doctor's appointments as Rebecca Martinez. Her medical records, insurance claims, and even the children's birth certificates all listed Rebecca as the mother. Rebecca discovered that according to legal documents, she was the mother of 2 children, Emma, age 4, and Carlos, age 2, children she had never seen, whose existence she was completely unaware of until she began investigating the identity theft. Anna's professional life as Rebecca was equally elaborate. She had built Martinez Strategic Solutions into a seemingly successful consulting firm, using Rebecca's actual MBA, work experience, and professional network as credentials. Anna had attended networking events as Rebecca, had given presentations using Rebecca's expertise, and had even been featured in local business publications as an up-and-coming entrepreneur named Rebecca Martinez. The business had real clients, real contracts, and real employees who all believed they were working for Rebecca Martinez. Anna had become so comfortable in Rebecca's identity that she had developed the professional confidence and expertise that she had never possessed as herself. She had essentially become a more successful, more confident version of Rebecca than Rebecca had ever been. Anna's social media presence as Rebecca was particularly disturbing. She had Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn accounts with thousands of followers, all featuring photos of her luxurious lifestyle, her beautiful family, her successful business, all presented as Rebecca's life. She posted about her children as if they were her own, about her husband as if she had met him as herself, about her achievements as if she had earned them through her own hard work. The most psychologically complex aspect of Anna's deception was how completely she seemed to have convinced herself that she deserved Rebecca's life. In conversations with David, with friends, with business associates, Anna spoke about her education, her career history, her accomplishments with complete conviction. She had somehow rationalized the theft so thoroughly that she appeared to genuinely believe that Rebecca's identity belonged to her. Anna had even gone so far as to create false memories and stories about her childhood, her family, her journey to success. She told David stories about growing up that were actually Rebecca's memories, about overcoming challenges that Rebecca had faced, about family traditions and experiences that belonged to Rebecca's life, not hers. The systematic nature of the deception was staggering. Anna had contingency plans for every possible discovery, alternative explanations for every discrepancy, and backup documentation for every claim. She had created a parallel universe where she was Rebecca, and Rebecca simply didn't exist. Most heartbreaking of all, Anna had used her intimate knowledge of Rebecca, gained through years of sisterly closeness, to make the impersonation completely convincing. She knew Rebecca's favorite foods, her childhood fears, her dreams and aspirations, her way of speaking and thinking. Anna had weaponized their sisterly bond to steal not just Rebecca's identity, but her very essence. The moment when Rebecca finally confronted Anna was unlike anything I had ever witnessed in my years of facilitating difficult family conversations. The pain, anger, and betrayal in that room was so intense that it seemed to change the very air we were breathing. Rebecca had spent months preparing for this confrontation, gathering evidence, consulting with lawyers, and trying to understand not just what Anna had done, but why she had done it. The financial theft was devastating, but the emotional betrayal was incomprehensible. How do you confront someone who has stolen your entire life and lived it as their own? Anna arrived at our studio knowing that her 8-year deception had been discovered, but she seemed genuinely surprised by the depth of Rebecca's anger and pain. In Anna's mind, she appeared to believe that she had simply borrowed Rebecca's identity temporarily, that she had been planning to eventually make things right, that Rebecca should understand and forgive because they were sisters. "Rebecca, you have to understand," Anna said, tears streaming down her face. "I never meant for it to go this far. It started as just a temporary thing, just until I could get back on my feet. You had everything, the education, the career, the perfect credit, and I had nothing. I just wanted a chance to prove that I could be successful too." Rebecca's response was raw and devastating. "You didn't just steal my credit, Anna. You stole my name. You stole my accomplishments. You got married as me. You had children as me. Those children think you're Rebecca Martinez. Your husband thinks he married Rebecca Martinez. You didn't borrow my identity. You replaced me with yourself." Anna's attempts to justify her actions revealed the depth of her self-deception and the extent to which she had rationalized the theft. She claimed that she had always planned to tell David the truth after they were married, but then she got pregnant and didn't want to complicate things. She claimed that she had been trying to pay off the debt slowly, without Rebecca noticing, but the amounts had gotten too large to manage. Most disturbing of all, Anna seemed to genuinely believe that she had been doing Rebecca a favor. "You never used your potential," she told Rebecca. "You lived so conservatively, so safely. I took your identity and made something amazing with it. I built a business. I created a beautiful family. I lived the life you were too scared to live yourself." Rebecca's pain was visible as she responded, "That wasn't your choice to make. Those weren't your risks to take with my credit, my reputation, my future. You didn't make something amazing with my identity. You destroyed my ability to make anything with my own identity." The confrontation became even more complex when we discussed the impact on Anna's husband and children. David had joined us for the show, and his confusion and betrayal were heartbreaking to witness. "I don't understand," he said. "If your name isn't Rebecca, then who did I marry? Are our children legitimate? Is our marriage even legal?" Anna broke down completely when faced with the reality of what her deception had done to her own family. "I love you," she told David. "Everything about our relationship is real except my name. I'm still the same person you fell in love with." But David's response revealed the impossibility of the situation. "No, you're not the same person. I fell in love with Rebecca Martinez, a successful consultant with an MBA who had built a life through hard work and integrity. I fell in love with someone who didn't exist." The legal implications were staggering. Anna faced criminal charges for identity theft, fraud, and forgery. Her marriage to David was legally void because she had married him under false pretenses. The children's paternity and custody would need to be legally resolved. The business she had built would need to be dissolved or transferred. The house, the cars, the lifestyle, everything would need to be unwound. But the emotional implications were even more devastating. Rebecca would spend years rebuilding her credit, her reputation, and her sense of self. Ana would lose not just her stolen lifestyle, but her marriage, her children's stability, and any possibility of reconciliation with her family. David would need to rebuild his understanding of his own life and make impossible decisions about his relationship with children, who were legally Rebecca's but biologically Ana's. The parents, who had loved both daughters equally, were faced with the impossible task of supporting Rebecca's need for justice while mourning the destruction of Ana's life and family. How do I forgive someone who didn't just betray me, but who became me? Rebecca asked through tears. How do I rebuild a relationship with someone who thought so little of my life that she decided she could live it better than I could? The process of reclaiming a stolen identity is infinitely more complex than simply canceling credit cards or changing passwords. When someone has lived as you for 8 years, undoing that deception requires unraveling an entire life built on false foundations, and the emotional toll is as devastating as the financial cost. Rebecca's journey to reclaim her identity began with the criminal justice system. Ana was arrested and charged with multiple felonies: identity theft, wire fraud, mail fraud, and forgery. The evidence was overwhelming: years of financial records, falsified documents, and recorded conversations where Ana admitted to the theft. Ana ultimately pled guilty and was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, but no amount of justice could undo the damage she had caused. The civil legal process was even more complex. Rebecca had to prove to creditors, banks, and reporting agencies that she was the victim of identity theft, not a co-conspirator trying to avoid responsibility for debts. Every account Ana had opened required individual disputes, affidavits, and legal documentation. Some creditors were understanding and cooperative. Others were skeptical and hostile, treating Rebecca as if she were trying to scam them. Rebuilding her credit required not just disputing fraudulent accounts, but also proving that she existed as a separate person from the Ana who had been living as Rebecca Martinez. Rebecca had to provide employment records, tax returns, utility bills, and witness statements to establish that she had been living her own life while Ana was simultaneously living as her. The emotional process of reclaiming her identity was even more challenging than the legal and financial processes. Rebecca had to confront the reality that her sister had not only stolen from her, but had lived a more successful, more fulfilling version of her life than she had ever achieved herself. Ana's version of Rebecca Martinez had been more confident, more ambitious, more willing to take risks and pursue dreams. The hardest part, Rebecca told me, wasn't just that Ana stole my identity. It was that she was better at being me than I was. She took my credentials and built a more successful business than I had ever built. She took my name and created a more interesting, more dynamic life than I had ever lived. It made me question whether I had been wasting my own potential, whether I had been too conservative, too afraid to really live. The impact on Ana's family was devastating and ongoing. David filed for divorce, but the legal complexities of their situation meant that the process would take years to resolve. The children, Emma and Carlos, were legally Rebecca's children according to their birth certificates, but they had never met Rebecca and knew Ana as their mother. Family court had to determine custody, support, and legal parentage for children who were biologically Anna's but legally Rebecca's, born to a father who had been deceived about who their mother actually was. Rebecca found herself in the impossible position of being legally responsible for children she had never met, while Anna faced losing her children because her parental rights were based on fraudulent documents. The extended family was fractured beyond repair. Rebecca's parents, who had immigrated to the United States and worked multiple jobs to give their daughters opportunities, were devastated by the destruction Anna had caused. They struggled with conflicting loyalties, supporting Rebecca's need for justice while mourning the destruction of Anna's life and their loss of access to their grandchildren. Rebecca's relationship with trust, with family, and with her own identity required intensive therapy and support. "I don't know who I am anymore," she explained. "For 8 years, someone else was living as me, making decisions as me, building relationships as me. I feel like I lost 8 years of my own life, like I was in a coma while someone else lived my life better than I was living it." The financial recovery process would take years. Even with the criminal conviction and civil judgments, Rebecca would spend decades rebuilding her credit, her savings, and her financial security. The house Anna had bought would be foreclosed upon. The business Anna had built would be dissolved. The luxury cars would be repossessed. But none of these recoveries would restore the 8 years Rebecca had lost or the relationships that had been destroyed. Perhaps most tragically, Rebecca struggled with whether she should have somehow known, somehow seen signs of Anna's deception. "She was my sister," Rebecca said. "I helped raise her. I thought I knew her better than anyone. The fact that she could deceive me so completely, for so long, makes me question my judgment about everything and everyone." The question of forgiveness remained unanswered and perhaps unanswerable. How do you forgive someone who didn't just steal from you, but who stole you? How do you rebuild a relationship with someone who thought your life was so unremarkable that they could improve upon it by pretending to be you? This story forces us to confront the darkest possibilities of family relationships and the devastating consequences of betrayal by those we trust most. Rebecca and Anna's story isn't just about identity theft. It's about the complex dynamics of sibling relationships, the destructive power of envy and entitlement, and the question of whether some betrayals are too profound to forgive. What makes this case so disturbing isn't just the scale of Anna's deception, but the intimacy of it. She didn't just steal Rebecca's financial information. She stole her essence, her potential, her very sense of self. Anna used her sister's love, trust, and generosity as weapons against her, turning their lifelong bond into a tool for devastating betrayal. The ripple effects of Anna's choices destroyed not just Rebecca's financial life, but multiple families, innocent children, and relationships that had taken decades to build. David lost his marriage and his understanding of his own life. Emma and Carlos lost their mother and their sense of stability. Rebecca's parents lost both daughters, one to prison, one to justified anger and broken trust. This story also raises uncomfortable questions about identity, achievement, and self-worth. Anna's ability to live Rebecca's identity more successfully than Rebecca herself had lived it challenges our assumptions about authenticity, potential, and what we owe to ourselves and others. I want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced betrayal by a family member? How do you balance love and loyalty with the need for justice and self-protection? Is there a difference between forgiving and forgetting when it comes to family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective might help someone else who is facing their own family crisis navigate these impossible questions. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories that explore the complex realities of family, trust, and betrayal. And don't miss our next video, where we examine another case of family deception that challenges everything we believe about the people we love most. Remember, the people who know us best are also the people who can hurt us most deeply. The question is and whether we face betrayal in our lives. It's how we respond when we do. And whether we can find a way to heal without losing our capacity to trust and love.